So thanks everyone for coming. This is an ALTEC workshop, and at ALTEC we are all about languages and all about the faculty who teach these amazing languages. We have a variety of programs and resources and support that we provide to both faculty and students at CU, as well as the community. If you're curious about learning more about what ALTEC does, you can reach out to me, look at our website, subscribe to our mailing list, and we'll definitely be in touch. I am so excited to invite Kelly and Maggie to join us today to share a little bit about their incredible work on memes in the classroom. It's really interesting, and I am excited to personally learn a lot about this topic. So a little bit about Kelly and Maggie. They both received their PhD from CU Boulder. Kelly received their PhD in Spanish and Maggie in German. Kelly has a podcast, which is so cool. I think that is fantastic. If you have not checked out their podcast, I would definitely suggest doing that. Very interesting stuff there. And then Maggie is active in a variety of places. She is working at CU Denver as well as CU Boulder in 2 different roles. So she is active a lot of different places, and she is also active in the Mutual Aid Action Group for German Studies. So these are 2 individuals who are doing incredible work in our communities to elevate the lives of our students as well as of our colleagues. So I really appreciate them sharing their interests and their expertise with us today. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Kelly and Maggie. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, everybody who's joined us. I'm going to share my screen, and Kelly is going to kind of give us an overview of what this hour is going to look like for us.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for coming to our presentation. We had to have an obligatory pun in the title, so obviously, what do you meme? And we are excited to be talking about different challenges that come with memes, but also really make a case for why we should be using them as instructive materials too. So today we're going to first start off with going over what is a meme, and then we are going to look at a few different examples about how you can use memes in the classroom, and going off of that, how to incorporate even more technology and social media in going off of these memes, and then how to integrate that into the language learning process for the class. And then we're going to look at, it's not all just, sunshine and rainbows. There are some issues to consider when it comes to memes. So we're going to highlight some of those. And then also talk about accessibility at the end, which is an important issue to consider because inaccessibility is important with memes also. And at the end, we'd love to leave some time for Q&A and sharing. Maybe some meme sharing in the chat. Who knows? We'll see. And as we're going through the session, we invite you to think about how you might integrate memes into your courses or your course this term. Or in all likelihood, y'all are already doing this in very creative ways that we don't know about even. So I'm looking forward to opening that up for discussion once we're done presenting some information.
All right, so let's start with the first objective there and just kind of talk about what is a meme. Making and sharing memes today is a regular form of everyday communication. I think we've all engaged with memes in one way or another, whether we realize it or not. So people around the world engage with memes in a stunning number of ways. They provide entertainment and social connection. They offer humor to help us deal with or address or sort of process difficult situations. They are used as multimodal objects in the classroom to enhance visual literacy. And as we recognized last summer during the Black Lives Matter uprising, they serve as powerful tools for social justice movements and mobilizing people toward political action. So we are constantly engaging with them all the time, maybe taking them for granted, but they are very useful in our everyday communications. They have become such a common form of visual communication that they're capable of nurturing our most intimate relationships as well. So Sharing them is even a meaningful way of expressing love and affection. And I'll just read this example meme here. My love language is the same as a crow. If you're nice to me, I'll bring you useless little trinkets from my travels that make me think of you. And if you're an internet friend, it comes in the form of memes at 2 a.m.
So maybe memes seem a little bit simple, but from a pedagogical, linguistic, and philosophical perspective, they're actually surprisingly sophisticated. If you type memes are into Google, you'll most likely get competing answers. This is a screenshot of a search that I did not too long ago when we were working on a different aspect of this memes project. And so are memes merely funny? Are they life? Are they the DNA of the soul? Or are memes dead or bad for society even? And why should we care? So the term meme is rooted in evolutionary biology, and it was coined by a guy named Richard Dawkins in his 1976 book, The Selfish Gene. So according to Dawkins, a meme is, quote, a unit of cultural transmission or imitation. And the term comes from the Greek mimema, which means imitated, and which Dawkins supposedly shortened to rhyme with gene on purpose. So this is sort of a nod to how the process of natural selection determines the survival of certain genes and how this somewhat parallels the way that culture evolves and which snippets of culture evolve and come with us into the future. So Dawkins's conception includes a wide range of examples. It can go anywhere from a catchy tune to jokes or the latest fashion trends. But here we're just gonna be talking about the phenomenon of the internet meme, and more specifically, the image macro internet meme. And so moving onward, in her book, Because Internet, Gretchen McCullough traces how online interactions have shaped how we communicate. And she includes the meme in her analysis and describes it as, quote, something that's made and recombined, spreading as an atom of internet culture, end quote. And so the visual component of a meme essentially forms a kind of meaning-making template. And then the words are going to provide nuance and specificity. So you can make memes by going to a meme template page like this one. This is meme generator from Image Flip, and I think this is one of the things you're going to drop in the chat. So what you can do is go in, pick one of your templates that you would like, and then you can go in, you can put in, you have your image here on one side, and then you can do text on the top and the bottom, and you can also have you can change your text colors and things like that. And you can add new templates. So it is like a participatory sort of media in and of itself, memes are. So you can, memes are constructed of an image wherein text is often integrated and an object is mirroring some sort of relevant or contemporary cultural topic. Scholar Lamore Schiffman, who has been working extensively on memes and authored the 2013 book, Memes in Digital Culture, she notes that the term meme, it's really apt to connote this excess of copies and reworks. My dog's joining us. And it deliberately connotes the term mimesis, so it's flexible enough to capture a wide range of communicative intentions and actions. And it spans all the way from copying to scornful imitation. Hello, can you sit down? Memes also produce an immediate affective, so like emotional response. They're not just sharing like topics or information, they're also sharing some sort of like emotional connection. All right, a little bit about, this is an image that is taken from a screenshot of a YouTube video that explains like kind of how memes work and how they circulate in society. So what often happens with a meme, and this is like an overarching generalization, it's not the case for 100% of memes, obviously. But so what'll happen is they circulate in digital spaces and often get passed between subcultures on the internet. And this is one way that we can determine, or we can understand a life cycle of a meme. They'll get conceived, pun intended, on image boards, such as the now infamous 4 or 8chan. and then eventually they'll get circulated more and yeah, like sifted through into more corporate social media platforms like Twitter or Instagram, Facebook, Reddit, Tumblr, and then eventually they'll get reclaimed by companies for advertising and marketing purposes.
Okay. Thanks, Kelly. So the next point that we want to discuss is, okay, so now we have an idea of what meme is, their life cycle, how we engage with them or see them in all over the place. How can we use this incredibly rich communicative object in the classroom? So I'm going to mention a few ways. I think that many of us use them as check-ins for our students at the beginning of classes, especially during COVID, while if maybe some of you are still teaching online like I am. Here's an example. It's really simple. This is how are you feeling on a scale of cat? Right, and there's lots of different ways that your learners can engage. I used this the other day in my German class, and I invited students to type in the chat the number, so spell it in German. So they're practicing remembering the numerals or the numbers and how to, and then also they can respond in a complete sentence, right? And it becomes very funny. One of the students says, I'm number 5, and then that opens up more conversation. I'm ready for the weekend. Or number 4, I'm feeling very hungry today. So this is sort of a nice sort of icebreaker and invitation to get back into the language first thing when we log on, if you're like me teaching remotely or in the classroom as well. But it's also a nice way to recognize our humanity, because we're not always checking in feeling great, right? So this sort of gives us an idea of, as instructors, how our students are doing, and also invites conversation, humorous conversation, to sort of, just prompt them to get back into the language. There are other ways that you can use these grid check-ins. This is a very goofy, niche-y one. This is the Nick Cage gauge, and here of course this is presented in the English language, but you can switch that according to if your students are learning this sort of similar descriptive vocabulary, they can type in the chat and just try to remember and make those associations with the visual and the meaning. So those are nice ways to use them very basically in the classroom. So you can also use these as analysis, right? So the memes are a multimodal object that responds to and contributes to cultural experiences and exchange by way of its capacity to visually communicate a multiplicity of content. I'm just reading from my notes here to help keep me on track. But so in other words, the internet meme makes use of very few words, but it can say a lot because of the meaning making rhetorical devices that we see here. We're just having like isolated words or phrases kind of overlaid on the visuals to create this image text tension to deliver a message, right? So in this case, we have less as actually more. So there's not a lot of explanatory language here, but what we have is a metaphor. And so a lot of times, as Kelly mentioned, the memes make use of image of something that's happening contemporarily. So we see here the Evergreen cargo ship and it getting stuck in the Suez Canal, and a lot of memes were produced out of that because it makes it a really funny metaphor, or a metaphor visual, I guess, play here that can open up a lot of different, more complicated, critical response to things in just a variety of topics, as we see here: climate crisis and systemic racism. this use of very little text here also affords the reader greater ease in accessing the meanings of messages that are in other languages. And this is where we can marshal the communicative possibilities of memes to use specifically in the language learning context, right? So if you are using, if you're looking at memes in other languages, you have no complete sentences, but the meaning making devices here between the tension between visuals and text, you have this sort of, you're oscillating between a cognitive understanding and a sort of a physical experience, right? A visual experience of the meaning making process. So after you have that aha moment of what this could possibly mean in whatever respective language you're operating in, it invites a lot of language production, right? Like explain what this means. And you could do just a basic explanation of what the visuals here are, or you could introduce like, this could potentially be an object that would invite a debate, right? So we can engage with these really briefly. We could get a good laugh, but we can also invite engagement with richer content and guide language production. So we really liked this quote by Michelle Zapavinia from their book, Discourse of Twitter and Social Media, How We Use Language to Create Affiliation on the Web, reminding us that meme production is an asynchronous, massively multi-person conversation. And precisely because of memes' vast communicative function, we can marshal their possibilities toward focused language production. And so we have these wonderful examples from our students, and the first series here were produced in Kelly's class. So I'll just let Kelly go ahead and explain these.
These might need a little bit of context. I taught an advanced language course in the fall of 2019 at CU, and we talked a lot about resource extraction, colonialism, and environmentalism, and a lot of resistance that was going on against environmental degradation at the time. It was when the Fridays for Future climate strikes were happening every Friday with some of the especially younger students. So I had my students, I printed out a bunch of memes. It was very heavy. The Amazon was on fire. We were talking about all these things in class. And so I was just needing to infuse a little bit of levity into what we were doing, but still stay on task. So I printed out a bunch of meme templates, blank on paper, and cut them up and put them at the front of the room, and had my students, I said, pick two and write one using the vocabulary of our chapter, which was basically about environmentalism and stuff, which you'll see in some of these examples. And the other one is like free and open. And a lot of them actually chose to write about the class itself. And so this is one of those examples. So it says, Kelly, if you want to protest, you don't need to take the exam now. And so then the whole class, and I like even seeing the mistakes and stuff on these examples, todo el clase, for the gender and noun agreement. So we can go to the next example. So this says, in commemoration to all of the trees in the forest that have been cut down. And it's Squidward from SpongeBob. And I basically gave them like no instructions, and they just went and made some memes. And this is before I really thought about any of the pedagogy behind it, honestly. So it's interesting to look at these examples like in retrospect and think about how I would do things differently. So this is the quintessential Arthur holding his fist meme. It says, when I see Starbucks cups in the trash and not in the recycling. And this says, when he's very handsome, but he doesn't recycle. Oh man. And this is when people say that climate change isn't real, that climate changes aren't real. And my personal favorite, This is the exploiting brain or galaxy brain meme template. And on top it says recycle papers. The second one, abonar su comida, or so compost or save your food, attend protests, and then abolish capitalism at the end. So I had a little bit more context of how this worked like in an in-person classroom. When everyone was done, I had pieces of tape and put them up all along the room, and then everyone got a chance to go around and do a gallery walk and look at other people's work, and it was really fun. We had a blast doing it, and you know, it was bonding with some inside jokes about stuff, and then also I think pretty cathartic to use some humor about it's kind of gallows humor, you know, about some of the ecocide and climate crisis that's going on. So those are examples from my class, and I'm happy to answer any questions that y'all have later on.
So Kelly, you were explaining that this is a higher level language class, is that right?
Right, yeah.
Okay, and so there's some pretty sophisticated text here, right, to describe the content that you all were exploring. But I wanted to add that this project or this activity is something that you can integrate into beginning level as well. So here's an example of what my first year German students did. And I think I'm really inspired by Kelly's activity by just kind of, you know, printing these out and letting students sort of develop something organically and express themselves and express in humorous ways, demonstrate what they've learned both on the content and also their language learning. But with beginning learners, that can be a little bit more intimidating, right? So text production. So I gave them some parameters. And here we see an example of neologisms was something that we were talking about. Just what is a neologism? How does it work? So I explained how to create a neologism, which is very easy in German because there's a lot of compound words, and then invited them to use craft a short explanation of what their new invented word means. And so there's, you know, very little language here, but this says the exam coma when one studies too much and can't sleep. So I was really pleased with this because there's a wonderful neologism, and even has some alliteration there, and the correct noun gender. And then we've made use, or the student here has made use of a conjunction and use the correct word order. So there's a lot of things happening here, and it was really fun to just praise them and encourage them and also laugh together. Here's another example of a neologism. This says the snail driver, which is a slowly driving person. And so we're working on adjective endings, and they got that correct as well. So those are really fun. And then another thing that they had just learned and we were really interested in is the use of los at the end of a noun to make an adjective, kind of like the same in English. You can add less to anything, like speechless, right? So this says, I don't always speak German, but when I do, I'm grammarless. And so again, this just absolutely perfect grammar. And this was made by created by a first year student who was not very confident, but when they presented this, the whole class was rolling. And so that was very affirming and positive for everybody, especially the meme creator here. So I'm getting a message that my internet is unstable. So if I need to repeat anything, let me know. So, and this brings us to the importance of humor in the classroom. Like Kelly was saying, it's, you know, when you have a heavy theme, this is a good activity to bring a little bit of lightness. But humor is a characteristic property of the internet meme, but one that also works to facilitate viral proliferation or fecundity, as meme creators continuously riff on each other's mimetic creations for humorous effect. Often the humor of internet meme originates within and for a niche community and represents an inside joke. And I think both Kelly and myself saw this activity as really just that. It was created by students for students, and was an inside joke among the class, and created strengthened community, and just, yeah, everyone bonding with each other. And here's an example of a student's creation, sort of response to some of the more frustrating parts of grammar learning. So this, we've got the Batman meme here, and this in the little speech bubbles, it says, I'm driving my car, but there's an absence of the dative ending here. So it sort of captures some real life experiences in the classroom, just kind of catching yourself. And so this got a huge laugh from everybody. This is another one. Says, when there are more than 2 verbs in a sentence, it's a little stressful for our beginner learners. And just, it was wildly hilarious for everyone. And German is simple. And then the second image here, we've got all the different definite articles according to their case and gender. And then this image here says, basically asking yourself, should I use a translation app, or should I actually learn the language? So some inside jokes about just the learning process. And this was one that we all got a huge kick out of. The student spent a lot of time on this. It says, I finally found it after 15 years, a scroll of truth. And on this this little section here, it says the verb is always in the second position, which is the #1 rule in German, but of course there's always exceptions, and the student has identified them here, where the little cartoon character is throwing that scroll of truth. So really sophisticated process of responding to the language learning. So Kelly, you had sort of like a gallery in the classroom where people were explaining and asking questions. If you're not teaching in face-to-face, the other ways that you can showcase what your students are doing, we posted them on the department's Instagram with the permission of the students, of course, and it was all anonymous. Then we added hashtags to German studies and things like that. Other ways that you can use social media technology around memes is to have your students do hashtag research. So they work backwards. They use the hashtag to find content, and then find a meme or an image that they think is interesting, and then do some language production around that, explaining what they see. I just added like an example here. There's a hashtag that's trending right now because of the German elections, 2021. So that's one thing that you could have students do and sort of engage in current events. You can also have students do TikTok presentations. We are focusing mostly here on the static image, or what Kelly described as the macro meme. But TikToks and GIFs, those are also memes. And so you can have your students, an alternative assessment would be for them to create a TikTok presentation or a TikTok essay. That's something that's been sort of popularized during remote learning and remote teaching. And another example, one way to expand on your students' meme production is doing a Twitter essay. And I'm just going to run this video capture that I grabbed of a Twitter essay, which is basically a series of Twitter posts that integrate hashtags, quotes from their research, and then also a meme or a GIF that gives some visual indication of what the content is. And so it's engaging. And another creative form of assessment for students to demonstrate their understanding or their own research on a topic, and can be more public facing and engaging and easy to share. So that's one possible way to expand on the meme production activities in your class.
Thanks, Maggie, for going through all of that. You've definitely blown open my conception of what's possible as far as like Twitter essays and alternative assessment stuff. So, and I think memes are perfect for that. But of course, there are some issues to consider. And for example, memes can include any number of harmful, such as racist, sexist, ableist, transphobic, etc., biases, and they can be misused and used by their creators and consumers. And this is the case for the appropriation of Pepe the Frog, for example, by white supremacists, and also the widespread phenomenon of something called digital blackface. And this is a term that describes when white people or non-Black people of color use reaction GIFs or memes featuring Black people. And this is widespread. I personally didn't know much about I didn't know about digital blackface. It's specifically at the time that I did that meme activity. So this is something that I would actually broach with my students in the classroom and make sure that they knew about. So, and then Rebecca, thank you for dropping in the chat. Here's an explanation of digital blackface for those who are interested. And this is a photograph of scholar Legacy Russell, and she unpacks this idea of digital blackface in her work, Black Meme. So highly, highly recommend checking that out. And so moreover, there's even more issues to consider when you take into the account the broader context just of corporate social media platforms. For example, Black, Indigenous, and people of color content creators on platforms like TikTok and Instagram they face multifaceted exploitation. For example, their accounts are shadow banned, they are tone policed and reported with posts getting taken down, and also there is a lot of examples of white people making money and gaining success, all while copying and not crediting or paying Black folks. So we say this not to like note the singularity of this trend of theft of appropriation that's been shaping social media for years, but rather to show how we understand this as a continuation of a colonial power's origin story of stolen labor on stolen land.
And I think too, as instructors, it's important to, if we're using an interface or we're using a platform, it's important to help our students know what they're using and just be aware of, just to think critically about the ways that they're engaging with these interfaces and these, multi-person communication or conversations that transcend borders, transcend languages. So think about these platforms in a larger critical context. Okay, another important issue that we want to bring up is the question of accessibility. So I'll just move back here. So we live in a world that's really rich with visual information, and that this is often taken for granted. But if we take images and add rich image descriptions, we can eliminate barriers to visual information that folks with low or no vision experience every day. So just a quick statistic here. According to the World Health Organization, about 15% of the world's population lives with some sort of disability, and having an and we see this is represented in our classroom, whether those disabilities are visible or invisible, but having accessibility first approach to your meme production will include people with disabilities and have a positive impact on how your entire audience interacts with your content. And so here's Bernie. Here's a meme of Bernie once again asking us to add alt text to our memes. So let me explain what alt text is. It is also called alt tags or alt descriptions. And it is the written copy that appears in place of an image if the image fails to load on a user screen. And that can be social media accounts. It can be also on a document that you're sharing with your students, or any images that are embedded in Canvas that your students are using for to support their learning. This text helps screen reading tools describe images to blind folks or readers with low vision. And so in our pedagogical practices, this is a part of UDL, or Universal Design for Learning, but meme creation in the classroom can be a way to model this as just general good practice in life, right? We can make the production of image description a second step in the meme activities. So first create a meme, and then the second step would be, how would you create some alt text in the focused or target language. And here's just an image here that kind of describes, gives you some visual explanation of what alt text looks like. If you're just going to, so if you have an image, your screen reader is not going to be able to read this text because it is part of an image. So if you were going to make alt text for the meme, you would only have what text is overlaid on the image, namely, was a bad boy all year, still got awesome presents from Santa. But the message in memes, or the meaning, is created from that image text tension. So to create alt text that would make sense to blind folks or folks with low vision, you'd want to create some text that explain these meaning making aspects, right? So the image and the text together. And we have a nice example in this second column. So we have the toddler clenching the fist in the front of the smug face, overlaid text on top, was a bad boy all year, overlaid text on bottom, still got awesome present from Santa. So, this is a activity that could just continue the language production in a very specifically guided way, but also modeling good practice for making all kinds of materials and communication accessible to all of our learners, pardon me. And I just want to mention, I thought this quote was very helpful as well. Social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram allow users to add alt text. So that's already a feature in a lot of our social media platforms, as well as Canvas. And we can drop some helpful resources in the chat that can kind of help guide if this is a new feature for you, it kind of gives you a step-by-step how to use that and how to create good alt text. So there's this feature, but only about 1% of images are accessible because a lot of people don't use this feature. So good practice, not only in our meme creation and engaging on social media platforms, but also in our pedagogical practice. And just to continue with that, more ways that you can make visual content accessible. Add alt text, add image description, keep your posts succinct, limit the use of emojis because screen readers don't always read those. Hashtags are really helpful, but if you use hashtags, use the camel case, which is capitalizing the first letter of every word instead of just having a bunch of lowercase. Screen readers will be able to read those individual words, even if they're kind of lumped together, as long as the first letter is capitalized. Add video descriptions, and then optimize color contrast as well. Okay, so that is our presentation, and here's our bibliography. We can make that available elsewhere, our contact information as well. But now we would love to open it up to some Q&A and also hear your ideas, how you might integrate memes into your classroom, your content, and maybe things that you've done in the past that aren't mentioned here that we can learn from you as well.
Wow, thank you both so much. I have definitely learned a lot. I came into this saying, I know what a meme is, but I totally did not really get the idea behind a meme. So thank you so much for educating me. I didn't realize the history started in the 70s. So that's really cool and fascinating to learn about that, how you've incorporated this to teach vocabulary and grammar in your classes, as well as addressing these really difficult and complex topics by essentially forcing your students to synthesize this down into such bite-sized small information pieces is really incredible. And I think that is probably really powerful for your learners in your classroom. The fact that you're linking this to social media, I think that's a great tool, and it's really interesting to see how this can be done both in a physical classroom as well as virtually, and how we can make use of social media and really meet students where they're at in their lives. That's a really powerful approach. And also addressing how it's problematic in a lot of the ways that we are looking at memes and how memes are being used to appropriate different parts of culture. And accessibility, of course, yes. Accessibility is something that we all kind of think about and we keep in the back of our heads like, yeah, that's something that I should be doing, but we forget about it so often, and alt text is the way to go, and it's something that we always have to really actively think about in our classroom. So thank you so much for sharing your expertise on this topic. I know I'm excited to figure out how I can use memes in my work in some way, and I'd love to hear how our other faculty are feeling about memes now that they've heard a little bit.
So I can just repeat the initial prompt, which was, yeah, how might you use it? Or is there an activity or like a specific content that might be useful to integrate some of these things that you learned, or ways that you have used memes or other technology, social media technology, that has been successful, and ways that we can learn from you all as well.
Or maybe this is totally new.
Well, for me, this is, sorry. For me, this is kind of new. I have to say that I love the meme with the cats, so I'm definitely going to use that one. Yeah.
The check-in?
Yes. That one, the one.
And there are so many. There are like goats, any animal that you can think of, or like, yes, like illuminated, like little images from illuminated text, right? Like you're on a scale of medieval text. How are you feeling? So anything that you can think of, it's out there. Just yeah, peruse around on the Google and you'll find an extraordinary wealth of the check-in memes. Yeah.
Not to mention the enormous archive of just general cat memes that I'm sure exist on the internet.
Yeah, I find them more difficult to use in a very basic language class. I think that is more useful for more advanced classes, and I know that you show a few examples on how to use them in basic classes, but all the examples that I can think are for more advanced classes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the examples that I showed were in the second semester, first year, second semester. So I challenge you, Rocio, and I would love to see what your students do. Yeah, there's plenty of opportunities for us to share.
Yeah, for me, it's very new too, but it's very interesting. So thank you so much. I'm always looking for new tools to include in my classes, and I teach beginner classes, and I think it's great as warm-ups. I like to do warm-ups at the beginning of a class to review what we did in you know, the previous class. And I think there is a lot of things that can be done, actually. I'm just a little, I'm just wondering where you can find, so there is this meme maker template website. Is that the main website you recommend to find the images? And is it pretty easy to make? See, I'm wondering how much work is involved into that.
I can answer that. I'm sure Kelly's got a response as well. Sophie, I will just give you an example. So I dropped that website, the template website, into the chat during class. And some students were familiar with it on how to make their own meme, and it was new for other students. But within 5 minutes, we had a collection. So it was that user-friendly for the students. It took me a while to kind of figure it out, but I did that beforehand. So I could, you know, give some directions for those who hadn't accessed that website before. But so
is this in your ALTEC classes? Because in ALTEC classes, there is a variety of students. So I can understand why the CU students would go fast in there, but sometimes I have students a little older who are not that great with technology.
Yeah, and in that case, I would recommend having students do it in pairs.
Right. Yep.
I'm sure, Kelly, I wanted to make room for you to respond to that as well.
You answered.
Okay.
Wonderfully.
And if you're face-to-face, Sophie, you know, Kelly's model was wildly successful as well, just printing them out.
Great, thank you.
And even if the students, I know for maybe production might be more complicated for lower level students, but I think it's even helpful because memes use a lot of like the internet slang or like the different spellings. I know especially like memes in Spanish, you know, just like the letters are different, or they might use abbreviations that you wouldn't know normally. So it does, even if I you could show some memes and just have like a lesson about how is this different, you know, on social media than it is, you know, in regular written formal Spanish or something.
Great. Does anyone have any additional questions or want to try this out in their classrooms? Wonderful. Well, thank you all for coming today. I am so excited that we were able to get Kelly and Maggie in here. They again have done some fantastic work, not just on memes, but on decolonizing the classroom and the curriculum. If you don't know about them, I encourage you to follow them on their websites and their social accounts. They're really active in their communities, and we all have a lot to learn from each other. So I encourage you to get in contact with them, as well as continue to attend ALTEC workshops. Our next workshop is on October 21st, and that is going to be on gender and sexuality. That workshop is being hosted by the Pride office on campus. So if you don't know the first thing about LGBTQ+ studies and how that has any place in your classroom, this is the workshop for you to come and get some education, make it a little bit less scary for you to learn how to make these topics accessible in your classroom, and also learn how to make this a safe place and an inclusive place for all of your students who come with different identities in their classroom. So thank you all so much. We hope to see you at our upcoming workshops, and I wish you all a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.